Okay. Hi, Sala and Vivien. Nice to see you today. This episode, we wanted to invite Vivien because she lost her cat and she made a very cute video memorializing him. And I just wanted to ask her some questions about that, such as why she made that video, how she came about it, and if it helped her to cope. Sorry, struggling today.
Okay, welcome, Vivien. Really happy that you could join us. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So would you like to tell us a little bit about Mr. Juicy and how I guess you had quite the journey with Mr. Juicy, right? You two went through a lot together.
Yeah, so a little bit about myself. So I think I met you, Monica, in Hong Kong. And Mr. Juicy was my 13-year-old cat. Basically, I got him when I was still in Austin, Texas, from a animal shelter, and fell in love with him. I guess he fell in love with me. He picked me, actually, immediately. He came right out and, tried to greet me. And so it was just it was an instant bond. Like you can't explain it sometimes. And he was exactly what I was looking for, the color, the face, the personality, and all that. So we actually been through a lot of cities together. We moved a lot together, been through a lot of personal stuff together. And when he was 2, he actually got his first cancer from a vaccine. So he got this thing called fibrosarcoma. So it's from a vaccine on the hind leg. So after a while, the doctor finally said, look, you need to get an amputation for him, because if not, it would spread. So a 4-legged kitty, like a totally healthy cat, turned to a 3-legged kitty. So during that process, we even bonded further. So I remember I threw away my bed and just had this mattress on the floor so I could be closer to him. And, I slept on the floor like I was still in college, just because, I felt really bad for him. And then he recovered. He actually made it out. And he got a second cancer when we were in Hong Kong, when we moved to Hong Kong when he was 10 years old. So it was a skin cancer. And then he got kidney disease. So it's a chronic kidney disease. So it was a long process of recovering and, kind of managing all the illnesses. And then finally he passed because of leukemia. Not leukemia. I think they call it some sort of cancer. They don't know where it's from. By the time that we find out, it's just kind of spreading everywhere. So when I found out, I guess because I always sort of had to prepare that I would lose him, throughout his life. So I always thought about how to make sure I remember him, because he's really special. He's my first pet and everything. So I came about the idea of taking pictures with him, when he's still sort of healthy-ish, and still very much having all these different faces and different, cute little little things that he does every day. And then the photographer actually suggested that a video. He was asking me, what do you think about a video with your pet? Because it is actually a very good idea. Pictures can tell 1,000 stories, but videos can even do better. So I was intrigued, and I guess we just did this little project together. It was his first time. It was obviously my first time, and we just basically, started out planning how to do this video, what kind of structure and what kind of questions or format, it would make it better. So we decided to have an interview. So he interviewed me, he asked me questions, and then he would, gather all the old pictures and make it like his life journey. And it was really beautiful. So I was happy that I had that. It was really good memory, like when he was still able to move around. And I think after we made that video, a couple of months later, or maybe even a month and a half later, he passed. So I was very happy that we got to make that video. And to answer your question, I think besides the video, I also did a lot of other things. I did paw prints. I did, whiskers, like, kept a little, the whiskers that he lost. And I did, his hair, obviously, when, we had the cremation, they asked if you want to keep, a little bit of hair. And I think it was also very special because the vet was very kind to come to our house to do the process, of him passing. So so the vet came over, and it was on our couch, his favorite spot, and it was, whole family was there. It was very peaceful. And yeah, like the birds on our balcony were chipping and trying to call him to heaven, I guess. I don't know, like to the Rainbow Bridge. And even the vet was like, oh, wow, Juicy, like your friends are calling you to play. And it was just kind of a very upbeat, it was very sad, but very upbeat event, because I just thought he was going to play, he was just going somewhere. So, and I'm glad that, I kept a lot of pictures. From that photo shoot, I blew up a few pictures. One of them is here, one of them. And I just still have his things throughout the house. When he was sick, he was in this little basket with like warm blankets and stuff. I still have it in the corner of my house, so just kind of feel like he's still around.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you kind of got guided to make that video from a photographer. Is that what you were saying? Okay.
Yeah. So he really was trying to, because when I first approached him, he usually does wedding pictures. He does wedding pictures and birthday parties and stuff. And I said, well, I don't know if it's your style, but, I really want to take some memory, like, just kind of pictures from my memory, with my pet who's got, like, he got cancer. And, I just explained the situation. And he thought about it. It was like, oh, you were the first approach me to ask me to do a shoot for, a sick pet. And I was like, oh, sorry. Do you want to add a different category on your website? But he thought about it, and he was really like happy that I asked, because he was very much interested in the whole new category. He has 2 dogs himself, and he said, oh, my dogs are older. You got me thinking that maybe we should have some memory together. And I was very happy to hear that, because I'm not the type that would think of new ideas of, like, creative form, that wasn't my area. So he just started thinking, oh, what could help with myself and other pet guardians, like, when they have the similar situation, they would, like, not too many people think about that. And then from there he started thinking, oh, maybe I can do videos too, just kind of like a wedding video, but in a pet journey, or companionship sort of style. So so together we thought about it together. But he asked me if I was interested if he could help putting together a video.
Did you, so the vet came over and that was nice and peaceful, but did you have a ceremony after that or anything like that? Or do you have any kind of rituals? Just curious.
We actually, he got really, really sick during Christmas. And I was so happy that, because it's the holiday, so I got to spend a lot of time with him. There was no ceremony or anything, but, obviously he spent days and nights without sleeping because of the pain. And I was with him. So it was more like just spending time together, like, just the last few days, really bonding. He was sleeping on the floor. I was sleeping on the floor. I just put a bunch of cushions there and just sleep on the floor. And I was, like just happy to spend some time together, really. And when we were in that area, like, or the place for cremation, we didn't ask for any ceremony or anything. I think the time we spent together is the most important thing. And it was very, like, you can't get that back to me. Like, I think ceremony, I didn't think about it. And I also didn't think that I needed it at that time.
Yeah. I think it's really interesting, Vivien, because so in Hong Kong, the only option is to have your pets cremated. And so Fred and Ginger were both cremated. And I didn't go. And they said, do you want to come and do a ceremony at the cremation, or do you want to be there for it? And I just, no, because kind of like you, I just thought we had the time when you were alive to be there. And I don't really want to be there for the cremation. But I recently had a friend whose 15-year-old Labrador passed, and he was cremated. And actually they did go to the cremation. They did attend sort of a ceremony because one of her helpers hadn't got to say goodbye when they took him because they had to take him to the vet. So so she really wanted to go and say goodbye, but she said it was actually really, my friend didn't want to go in, but the helper was saying that it was really beautiful actually because they'd groomed him. So he was very fluffy and looked, I mean, he was a beautiful dog, but he looked really beautiful, cared for. So she actually said it was kind of, it was really, it helped with kind of that closure.
Yeah, I actually went, I mean, we didn't have a ceremony, but I did go to the cremation place. I was the one who, that was the hardest part, actually. I was the one who pressed the button. I'm sure, like, is similar to anybody who did the same for your loved ones. Like, I think this is the same sort of intense emotion. And that was the hardest part. I think, to know that you have to say the final goodbye, because, as you said, they made him look really nice, like, gave him a bath and then like just kind of fluffy. It looks like he was just sleeping, right? But then when the time came and then you had to say the final goodbye and you just had to do it yourself to press the button, which I actually really wanted to do because that's part of our journey. And I think that if anybody should send him off, I shouldn't have left it, to the staff. I wanted to do it myself. But it took a lot out of me because it was really like, like when I was thinking about it, it was like, oh, this is final. And I think, I didn't think about that, like, because I never, well, first of all, I didn't think that I was going to lose him in Hong Kong. I didn't know that my only option was cremation. And to be honest, like, I think I would like to bury him myself. But, well, that was the situation and, I just had to deal with it. But I guess the pressing button part was the hardest part for me. And then getting his ashes back. Yeah,
that's a day.
This little container. I'm like, this is a big cat. So getting his ashes back was tough too. And then the waiting the waiting after you press the button, knowing that that's the process of cremation and waiting for his ashes back. That was tough too. But yeah, like I also, had to remember, okay, at least he's not suffering.
Yeah.
The last few days looking at him, and I was struggling myself whether it was the right time to make the right call, right? Like, because as a pet guardian, is a little bit different than losing your loved ones, right? Like,
Yep.
you don't make that call, but with a pet, you do have a chance to make that call. And in my mind, I guess, like throughout the years, I always thought about, okay, what's the worst case scenario? How would I feel? How do I know that is the right time?
Mm-hmm.
When is the right time? Because I can't talk to him, right?
Well,
so you have to decide, and you feel like that's your sole responsibility to this being that you've been with for so many years. So that was hard. But by the time I saw him suffering, by the time I saw him just kind of, he wasn't giving up, because he was never, with 3 cancers and so many different places, he moved around with me a lot. He was never a cat that would give up. You can see from his eyes, but he was tired. And I discussed with my husband, and, I think he helped me to realize that, it's time. It is difficult, but it's time, because you don't want to see him suffer. And that was hard too. Like, that was one of the hardest parts too.
I think you're really right, because it's that burden of there is no perfect time, there's no right time, but it's just, am I going to pick the time that's okay? Because I can't ask them. I can't say, do you want to go, or do you want to stay for? I mean, it's so hard. So Vivien, I totally get it.
Yeah,
it's like a real. It's the responsibility for making those life and death decisions for someone else who has no input. I think it's it brings home how disempowered animals are about their lives. We decide where they're going to live. We decide when they're going to have mealtime. And then we make that final decision as well for them. So it's really
and it's something that I actually, I don't know where I read it. I don't know, like, because before I took him on, I actually read a lot of books about having a pet, like how to just take care of that. Like, just kind of ask people. A lot of my friends, like, because I actually had my first pet, like, which is Mr. Juicy, at 25, I guess. And it's like, like, it's a big decision, because it's basically when I was, like, having a career, and, I was trying to move to different places to pick up different jobs, and it was a big responsibility. And I don't know where I read it, or somebody told me about it. Like, a lot of people call themselves pet owners, but we don't own them. Like, I think we're just a guardian that, it's helping them through life, because, we have them under our wings, and we're just helping them. And, they own us.
I guess. But yeah, I think you're really right, because I find it quite jarring when I'm talking sort of to other people, and they say, oh, owner, and I'm like, that's really not what this is, because they're not an object, they're not a possession, they're a whole person, they're, there's a being in there. So it's very it's nice to hear you say that you were kind of thinking about yourself as the guardian for Mr. Juicy.
So I think, like, throughout the years, especially when he's sick, like, I always thought about what's good for him, because even during his time that I was thinking about, having an amputation for him, I was so scared. I mean, I don't know if I should make that call. There are so many medical decisions, like, can can I ask him if he wants to lose a leg? you know, it was hard. It was really hard. And then I just thought, what is the right decision for him, for his health, and, what would make him suffer less during that process. And I guess the worst is a 2-year-old cat didn't get a chance to live a full life.
Yeah.
Through amputation, just, trying to not let the cancer cells spread, I might be able to help him, to live longer. Yeah. And that was really the motivation. And I think, it was a tough decision too. Same as, that final call, when, is it the right time? Like that was, that I was thinking about him. I was thinking about how much is he suffering right now? Like I look at him and see the pain, and he couldn't sleep, and his, lungs were filling with water. Yeah. And I had, make the call. And that was tough. But going back to the cremation part, like after that, like I was just so shocked to get, the ashes back. It was just, but right now, we just got a new house, and I was thinking, I got an olive plant that I was going to maybe put his ashes together with the plant or something. But I think it's a good way to remember him as well, watching the plant grow.
Yeah,
that's a great idea. Yeah,
I think that's right. I was actually going to ask you what you were going to do with his ashes, because I'm still in Hong Kong, so at the moment there's nothing. There's just you're in your little urn. But yeah, one day it would be.
I think I would keep some ashes to myself. Like, I really, because right now, this might sound really silly, but I travel. So we moved from Hong Kong to here in the US. I actually personally took his ashes on the plane in a carry-on with me.
Doesn't sound silly.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That's silly.
Like I don't want to risk losing it or misplacing it or anything. Like it's I don't even know if I needed to, like send in an application for that.
Well, lucky no one asked.
I did that, and then it's been with me. Like it's been with me right next to my, I really just I can't part with it for too long. But I would keep some. I think I would never be able to, like for me, I would be able to spread it in the ocean or anything like that. I really keep it to myself.
No, I think it's also it's also maybe doing something that makes sense for them. So, I don't know, I could see a time if I got to a really beautiful stream in a mountain, putting Ginger there, because she loved doing that. But it would have made no sense to Fred, because he would be like, I hate this. So it was it's sort of thinking about that. But it was, I was listening when you were saying that you also kept some other sort of physical mementos of your pet, which I think is also really helpful, because just like you, I kept fur, some of their fur, mostly because Ginger molted all the time. So we could pretty much have made another Ginger just every day from the fur that she was molting, because that was her. But I also managed, when they were babies, to keep their baby teeth.
Oh, wow.
I know, which is kind of rare for dogs, because often they just get lost in play, or but they're like tiny, tiny, tiny little shark teeth. Which, considering how big they got, it's kind of weird. But yes, so those I'm definitely keeping as well, because they're just, it's special.
Yeah. And I also haven't, like I think a lot of people try to, get rid of their old stuff. Like I try to keep even like the blanket I brought him home with, and his crate is still here when we moved from the US to Hong Kong. His crate is still here. And just his things, I just can't part with his things.
I think also, I think it's different for everybody. So they had some very special bowls to eat from, which I've kept, and their harnesses I've kept, and Fred's special elephant I had to keep because he loved that toy for 15 years.
I have one too, but don't ask me what my cat does with it. I mean,
okay. But I wanted to give the other things to dog rescue because I also just felt so grateful to them for having given me Fred and Ginger to start with. But I had a friend whose cat died, and I mean, she was 18. So she had been there sort of through their children growing up and just everything. And she was very dog-like. So she was a very affectionate cat. So she was very much part of their lives, sleeping on the pillow, watching TV with them, all of that stuff. When she passed, which was sort of a traumatic event, unfortunately, it wasn't peaceful at home. They got home, and the next week, my friend was trying to clean up and wash the stairs because they'd found these paw prints. So obviously the cat had been outside. She'd been outside, got mud on her feet, and then had walked up the stair. Very cat, had walked up the stairs inside, but her husband wouldn't let her. So she said it took him more than a month before he would let her clean the stairs.
Oh, wow.
Because he said, I want to just keep seeing her little feet and just imagining that she's just walked up the stairs.
Aww.
So I think it's just, you just have to do it in your own time.
Yeah, in your own time.
Yeah, I think, I think mourning a pet, it's the emotions and the grief, and just all the feelings, they're as strong as losing a family member. I mean, they are a family member.
Yeah.
Right?
They are.
And I think, in our society, a lot of times they think, oh, you lose a pet, you lose a cat, a dog. Okay, sorry, get back to work tomorrow.
Yeah, right.
So, and some people may think that it's silly for you to take a day off or take some time off to grieve. But the emotions for some people are as strong. And especially for me, like, I guess, I had Mr. Juicy and first pet when I was older.
Yeah.
So, it is a time that I actually decided to take on that responsibility. I actually decided, to do all these things with him. And it's a choice, it was a choice to be with them. So sometimes I feel like maybe it's because of that. Like, if you have family members that pass, like, family, sometimes it's not your choice, but it's but your pet is a choice that you make with your life. And I think to go through all these things with you in your life journey, sometimes for over a decade, right, most of the time actually, it is nothing insignificant at all. So and I think grief is grief. It doesn't really matter whether it's a person or an animal or even a relationship, it's grief. Grief.
Yeah. I think it's also sort of what you were talking about earlier, which is the responsibility, which is actually the dependence. So it's that actually their whole journey is dependent on you. And so I think that creates this extra kind of layer when you're grieving, because you're right, family members, A, you don't choose them, and B, they will do their own thing. So, when the children, yes, but even children are like, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
So there's a different type of relationships. I think that dependence also just makes it kind of deeper in a sense.
Yeah, I think so too. And to be honest, like, I never thought I was going to bond with a pet that much, I guess, because when I had him, like, I knew not too much about having a pet. But through all the years, he actually taught me more in life, about responsibilities, about resilience, about unconditional love, more than a lot of other experience that I had, and I think that to me, how through this, experience with him, or this journey with him, I got to know more about myself. I got to learn more and grow more as a person. That was very, very dear and valuable to me.
Definitely.
So I think
go ahead, Vivien.
I was just saying that, like losing him, it was more like, okay, I was saying goodbye to that part of the chapter.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was going to ask you what you learned from Mr. Juicy, but you answered that. But also Sala just lost 2 dogs, right? And so we had a similar chat, and I'm just very curious if either of you have advice for people who are making decisions about healthcare for their dogs or grief or any of that. And of course, everyone grieves differently, right? But
yeah. Well, I think one thing that 2 of the vets said to me, which I think was kind of helpful when I was trying to make the decision, was they said, think about sort of the top 5 things that Ginger loves doing or Fred loves doing. And then when you're down to 2 of they can't do the other things, but they can still do 2, then think about sort of those quality of life decisions. I mean, the problem was for Fred, for Ginger, I didn't, because I knew we were dealing with a terminal diagnosis and we just had time. But for Fred, there wasn't a particular time. He had so many health conditions. And I would do those online calculators, but the problem was his top favorite thing in the whole world was food. And, that never, so on that, he was always way over the scale for quality of life because food.
And he ate well. Fred ate well.
Well, and that was actually kind of a silver lining to my over ordering for Christmas this year, which was that there was so much meat. I hadn't really understood the ordering form. And so instead of 2 turkey breasts, I ended up with 2 turkeys.
Oh, wow.
Instead of like a couple of steaks, I ended up with like 2 massive sirloin fillets.
Wow.
Yeah. So that Christmas, Fred, essentially had turkey for breakfast, gammon for lunch, and sirloin for dinner.
Wow.
For about 5 days. So he was happy.
He was happy. Yeah, he was happy.
Yes, and that was his top favorite thing. But yeah, I think that was kind of helpful, just to think about what is it that they love doing. Is that still available to them?
That's a good way.
And if it's not, then what else is going on? What's kind of filling that space for them in terms of their experience? Because obviously, as Vivien saying, you can't ask. Yeah. That's one of the hardest things, is just thinking, what would you do? I'm making decisions based on my values, but I don't really know if that's how you would decide, but I'm kind of trying to do the best I can. I think it's also, people need to just give themselves a bit of a break, because it's hard, and just say, this is the information. I'm making the best decision I can. It's never going to be perfect. Yeah. It's never going to be, 3:00 Monday, that was the right time. It just, so
it's hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think like same as your experience. I think my vet also mentioned quality of, it's really down to how they live, how they usually like living, but they're not doing it anymore. Or they're doing less and less, and down to, mainly just pain and suffering. Then, it's the right time. And then the second thing, also what you mentioned, Sala, is that that you've done your best, or you're doing your best for him.
Yeah.
Not just throughout that period of time when you think you're losing him, but throughout his life or her life. And I think that gives me a lot of comfort, knowing that like I've done my best, to take care of this pet to really care for him, to provide the best I could, really. And he was healthy, but, it's kind of a, circle of life that gets sick. And to know that, even down to the last minute, I tried and did my best for his life journey, gave me a lot of comfort. Like I just thought it was sad to say goodbye, but I did my best. And I think that really helped, because you have to comfort yourself to know that, this is nothing you can do to control the outcome, and you make the best decision based on the information you have.
Yeah.
Your observation, really, because your pet the best. But there is nothing coming back telling you, hey, this is good. I like that. So I think at that point, like, you really just have to, try to comfort yourself in knowing that, like, I've done my best. I actually have really gave all I could, and that is the very important thing, I think, to self-soothe at that point, because the emotions were so intense that it was something that of course, I've lost family members, I've lost really, really important people in my life, but that grief, it was also nothing comparable. Like, grief cannot be compared, and that was still a very intense feeling. It was a very intense experience. And I think knowing how to self-soothe, and one of the things I think I did was, like, I thought of, what else could I have done if I have done my best? And the answer I was able to give myself is, like, I've done my best, and this is really, like, the moment.
Well, I know both of you, and I've seen you both with your pets, and you're both wonderful, wonderful pet guardians or pet parents, and your pets had lovely lives. And since speaking to you last time, Saul, I've been more patient with my own dogs, because they hate the bath, especially Trigger, who's so big, and there's, like, no room. And so I'm always hitting my hand or hitting my head, and I'm just like, I've been more patient with him, because I'm like, I don't know how long he's going to be on this planet, And so I'm like, these are important moments. And so I've learned a lot from listening to both your stories, and even how to be more patient and take every moment in, right? But no one's perfect. There's no perfect parent. There's no perfect spouse, partner, pet guardian, right? But I know that your pets knew they were very loved. I know that.
Yeah.
I think one thing that also was interesting is just the experience of, so Fred died 6 months and a day to Ginger's death. And it was so different. Like, Ginger was very much like Mr. Juicy. The vet came to the house. She was sitting on her favorite part of the sofa. We were all there. It was very peaceful. And Fred's was the polar opposite. It was middle of the night to the hospital. It was just an emergency situation. So that was different. But actually, just I found grieving them was really different, because I think because of where Fred was, even though Ginger was the one that had the terminal diagnosis, actually, Fred was in more pain when he died. Fred was more distressed when he died. So it was just, I think it's also just understanding, even if it's a pet, there can be different experiences of that passing that will also sort of impact how you feel. But one thing that really helped me was, I think when Ginger died, I was just too upset to read anything. It was too raw. And then Fred dying, I actually was able to read. So a friend of mine had sent me the Rainbow Bridge website and recommended it. And she did it for when Ginger was dying, and I just couldn't bring myself to read it. It was too much. But when Fred died, a couple of weeks later, I actually went online and was reading it, and it really helped. But I wouldn't have been able to do it 6 months ago. So I think that's also just knowing there are resources out there, but sometimes it's got to be right resource, right time.
Yeah.
And it's not always the right time. But the other thing that's really helped is my friends are fostering a dog, and it's their first experience with an animal in the house. So they are freaking out. But helping them to kind of understand her a little bit has been so healing, actually, and just really, that's really helped as well, being able to help them. I think actually went to the dog rescue yesterday, that was overwhelming, but just having one dog who's in a home, who's trying to learn how to live there, and they're trying to learn to live with her, that was really amazing. So I think there are it's finding what works for you to help with processing that grief.
I actually, that's interesting. Yeah, like it's finding what works for you. And a lot of people say writing helps, right? Like a lot of times. And I actually wrote a letter to him, not specifically, like handing him the letter or anything like that. But like I wrote a letter just to thank him, like the things that I'm thankful for with the life experience with him. Like I think that really helped me a lot, because I just, by writing that letter, it made me realize he has given me a lot, like a lot. And that's not something that you can, buy with money or, exchange it with anything else. It was just things that you list out what you value most and what they helped you a lot, throughout the years, right? So I think that was very helpful for me. It wasn't like how much I miss you and all that. Of course, there was some of them there, but it was more like about celebrating the life that we together, and it helped me to see, the happy times and the just those things that you would never have that back.
Yeah, I think that's a really beautiful idea. I actually, so I also wrote, but not a letter to them for sort of a gratitude. I actually wrote all of the things that because I had them for almost 15 years. So it was all of the crazy things that they did and the stories, and because I didn't want to forget them. So I kind of wrote down all of the stories that I could remember. Most of them involved me going like, oh my God, why is this happening? What have you done?
I know.
Stuff like that. But it makes you kind of, those are, at the end of the day, that's really the fabric of your memories of them. Those sort of crazy times when they're doing stupid things.
I think it's so easy to be so soaked into like the suffering, the pain, the last few days, how difficult it was. But I think, to look at it, in a bigger lens, like I think it helped me, to sort of have a better overview of the whole journey, and it comforted me to know that we had so many good memories and happy memories together.
No, I think that's so true. It's what you're saying. It's actually the whole journey. So yes, there are definitely, scary times and frightening things that happen and things where you're stressed, but actually remembering, the silly things that happened, and, when they just, roll in poo and then just expect to come back to the house, stuff like that. You're just like, why?
Mine was really, I turned on the, it's a top load.
Oh no.
And I put a bunch of towels and I grabbed, sometimes like you turn on the washing machine and then you go grab things and start putting in the washer. And then I added soap already.
I'm so scared.
I believe it was Tide. But anyway, I came back and I saw a cat with two paws like on the side of the washer. And the,
oh my gosh,
spinning like that, and he was half blue.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, at that time, it wasn't funny. It was terrifying.
That would be really terrifying.
Cats, they groom themselves, right? Like, especially, I'm like, what if you eat like half bottle of Tide? Luckily, luckily I was washing towels, right? So I was grabbing towels to wash, and then I just wrapped him up and took him to the bathtub and hosed him down. That
Was he so angry? I mean, what did he do?
He was angry. He was like,
I bet.
why are you doing this to me? And I had to lock the bathroom door.
Yeah.
Go at it. The whole bathroom was like basically bubbles. It was almost like in a cartoon or something.
Yeah.
Like to ask a cat or a dog to stay in the bathtub. Hey, like stay in the bathtub. That was not gonna happen.
Right.
Oh.
I just spray wherever it goes. That was really fun. To think about it now, but
yes.
It wasn't fun back then.
No.
That would be
Many
scary.
of these stories are only funny in retrospect.
Yes.
At the time, you're majorly stressed out.
Yeah, very stressful. But yeah, so things like that, I just wrote it down. Even that experience to me, now is so funny. When you tell people, it's so funny. It reminds me of what that Ben Stiller movie was, like Meet the Fuckers or something.
Oh,
like,
yes, Meet the Fuckers. Yeah.
Cats in the toilet bowls. That's exactly what it looks like. But yeah, like I wrote that down as well.
Yeah.
Thanking him for the experience, for that, fun.
Yeah.
When I think about it now. So yeah, I didn't just do it with Mr. Juicy. I also did it with my grandma who passed away. And I also wrote something that I was thankful for, about her and her life spent with me and all that. So I find that very helpful for myself to deal with grief. One of the ways to deal with it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there is a lot of research, I guess, Monica, about how writing is a way of helping process. But those are two options for how you want to do it. So either gratitude or just, silly stories.
Yeah.
But I think they're really helpful just to help with the processing. But but also the other things that you're doing, keeping things, having, somewhere special that you're thinking of putting his ashes, all of those things kind of help as well.
Yeah.
And
of course, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to ask, because so the video, who did you show that to?
The world.
I saw it on Facebook, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, I posted it on Facebook.
Right.
So to me, it's the world. But
Yeah.
I actually, I take a lot of home videos with him, and I that really nicely made video with the photographer or video. I posted it on Facebook, but I also, had a very nice, sort of folder on my laptop, just kind of all the pictures and all the videos, and just kind of had a special folder for him. And all the pictures I still keep. I blew them up, and they are around my house. And just keep that.
Yeah, that's lovely.
My husband did. He took video of him passing.
Oh, wow.
So that's why I still haven't watched it. I can't.
Yeah, that's a lot.
It's still very intense for me to even think about it. 'Cause grief comes in waves, and sometimes I can think of him just all smile and very happy, but at times especially when I think about the day he passed, it was still, it's still very sad, very, very sad.
Mm-hmm.
But that video, we still have it, and that's how we learned that there was a bird or a couple of birds,
right,
singing and chirping and all that. That's how I know. But I still can't pull myself to watch it. But yeah, I think I keep a lot of memories that whatever I could. My ringtone, I changed it to his voice. So he is he was a very vocal cat, and I sometimes tape his mail.
His thumbs.
Yeah. And I use it as my ringtone.
Oh, that's so nice.
My two other cats, when my phone like, what?
Who is that?
Yeah. Yeah, like just like a lot of things could help you remind him,
Yeah.
you know, he's all around you.
Yeah, no, I think that's really true, because the other thing, so I painted a picture of Ginger, so I'm just about to do Fred's painting as well. But I think that's another way that's kind of nice, is just, you know, it's just how you kind of want to see them.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, you know, just keeping those things around.
Yeah.
I think maybe it's different for some people, but keeping these things around the house makes me feel like he's still around.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people, or maybe some people, just can't deal with it. And they just, you know, kind of keep everything in a box. And, you know, I think different people deal with it, you know,
everyone's different.
Completely.
Some people need to give it away.
Yeah.
Like to keep it. Yeah, it's different.
So for me, I find it very comforting. Everywhere I go, I see something that reminds me of him. Like it's almost like he's still around. And on top of it, he has a lot of fur. Yeah, like in my winter box, and you know, sometimes I took a bag. I'm like, why is it fur? He likes to sleep inside of my bag.
Naturally. Oh, can I just say, I really that really resonates for me, because Ginger died in June, but I'm still pulling clothes out of the wardrobe, particularly because it's now winter and they've got fur on them. It's only her fur. Fred never molted, but it's just so funny, because it's just like, oh, of course, that's why there's white fur all over this.
Yeah.
But I actually love it. I kind of do. Yeah. It's kind of nice.
Yeah, it just kind of feels like, oh, they're still around, you know, like.
Yeah. Yes, she is still molting all over my clothing. Yeah.
Yeah. Corner of the house. Yeah, it's just good to have those things that remind you of, you know, like your life together. I think it's
I think that's really true.
Mm-hmm. Well, I appreciate both of you sharing your stories. They're so personal and touching and bittersweet. So thank you both. Is there anything else you wanted to say to anyone before we end? No? Okay.
I just wanted to say thank you, Vivien. I really appreciate hearing about Mr. Juicy, and it will be a long time before I forget that image. So
like I'm happy that, you know, I got a chance to talk about it, because, you know, sometimes you just don't talk about it enough. I think people don't talk about it enough.
Yeah, they don't talk about it.
Yeah, because like I have friends who lost their pets, and I make an effort to write a card, like a sympathy card.
Yeah.
And, you know, just to make sure that, you know, they know that I'm thinking about them. They know that I understand the experience, or I can imagine how much pain they're going through, and I try to support them. And a lot of them are very surprised. Like, nobody writes me a pet sympathy card. I don't think it's in a lot of people's mind to understand. You know, people actually have very intense grief with the pet, and you know, I think, especially during this time, you know, when everybody works from home, you spend a lot more time with your pets. You spend a lot more time, like your family, right? Like you spend a lot more time in the same space. You actually, not like, you know, going in an office and you don't think about them. Just like look at them through a pet cam or whatever. But you actually spend a lot more time together. And I think, you know, with a lot of mental sort of health issues with the pandemic, losing a pet during this time could be more difficult, could be more.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
And could be just even more heart-wrenching than normal times, right? Because you really bond with your pet during this time. And I just want to make sure that, you know, a message is out there that, you know, it is a very difficult experience, I think, you know, for a lot of people. And to, if you know your friends or your family members lose a pet, just reach out and make sure that, you know, they know you're there, give them support, even just to listen. Because a lot of people think, oh, all these silly pet stories are just, you know, silly. But yeah, that helps a lot. Like just to talk about it, you know, that it helps a lot. And yeah, like I think everybody is going through, you know, difficult time during the pandemic, and, you know, losing a pet during this time could be, you know, like really difficult. So I just want to make sure everybody knows, like, okay, you know, if you have a friend or like family members has experience like that, reach out, you know, make sure you get a call and make sure they're okay.
Yeah, I think that's such good advice, because I think you're right that people, some people I think do dismiss the sort of the grief, but then I think some people want to acknowledge it, but they're worried, I'm going to say the wrong thing, or I don't know what to say. And I think what you were just saying is just listen, just, you know, listen to some silly stories is so comforting and connecting. So I think that's really great advice.
Yeah, thank you. But I'm so happy to talk about it, because I think talking about it helps me as well. It's really just sharing. Is like some sort of taboo or like, you know, like silly things, and it helps.
Yeah, it does. Thank you for sharing your stories about Mr. Juicy. I'm really glad. I'm sad I didn't get to meet him, but I'm happy to have heard about his life.
I'm happy to share, and I'm happy to meet you too.
Yeah, and thank you both, because I think your story, your ways of coping are going to help a lot of people, and it highlights the importance of acknowledging pet loss, right? So thank you both for that. It's amazing.
Thanks for organizing this, Monica and Sala.
Sure, Sala, yeah.
Very welcome. Anytime. Thanks so much, Vivien. Thanks, Monica.
Thank you.
I'll see you next time.
Bye.